started on our Zoom meeting. Oh, we are live. Okay, well, thank you very much. Welcome everyone to our council meeting here. It is, what is it, about 5:33. So we're just a few minutes later than we wanted to be, but we are back from an in-camera session here on Monday, July the 25th, 2022. And council had a bit of a recess, and so we've now reassembled here in the council chambers. Just as a note, Councillor Leishman advised that she's not able to join us tonight, so she is not here tonight, but we do have all of our members here. I want to thank our members of staff that are here with us as well, and we have many members in the audience as well tonight, so it's great to see that. As we begin this meeting today, I'd like to start with our land acknowledgement. I'd like to begin our meeting by recognizing the First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples of Canada as traditional stewards and caretakers of the land. We acknowledge that Clearview Township is located within the boundaries of Treaty 18, the traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee, the Titatanari, the Wendat, and is home to many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people as part of an intricate nationhood that reaches across Turtle Island. At this time of truth and reconciliation, we welcome the opportunity to work together towards new understandings and new relationships, and we ask for guidance in all that we do. As always, I say that voluntarily as the mayor of the township, and I do so with great humble honor. Council, as I said, our agenda does have that we were on an in-camera session. So at this point, we're going to move to item number 2 on our agenda, which is the approval of the agenda. Recommendation be it resolved that Council of the Township of Clearview hereby approve the agenda dated July 25, 2022 as presented. Can I have a mover and seconder? Councillor Deneen, Councillor Walker. Thank you. I'm looking at any additions? No? Okay, I'll call the motion. All those in favor? And the agenda carries. Thank you very much. Council, item 3 is disclosure of pecuniary interest and general nature thereof. Does any council member have a disclosure they need to reveal? Councillor Walker.
Thank you, Your Worship. With regards to the mayor's report from closed session, item 3, Southeast Stainer Wastewater Sewer Development Agreements. I have a point of interest as a resident on that street.
Okay, thank you for acknowledging that, and please take the chance to fill out the correct forms and file them with the clerk's department. Any other members of council? Seeing none, if anything comes up during the meeting, please bring it forward at that time. We'll deal with it appropriately. All right, council, we're going to move to item number 4, which is our public participation period. Public participation period is open to the public in the council chambers at this time. Interestingly enough, we have a motion later on in our agenda about public participation period, but we're going to move on as we have the agenda in front of us, and this is the procedures we're following. So please be advised that comments and views expressed under public participation period are not the views of the Township of Clearview, council, or the administration. Public participation is limited to 15 minutes. Each person is limited to 5 minutes. Questions or comments are to be directed to the mayor. Questions shall not refer to personnel matters, litigation, or potential litigation, or planning matters that have already had a public meeting or any item considered confidential. So please remember to share the time with your fellow citizens. Do we have members of the public? Dave, come forward. Mr. Witzke, nice to see you.
It's Witzka. Sorry, I should have told you that a long time ago.
I apologize. Witzka.
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 Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Witzka.
I'd like to talk about fiscal accountability, if I may.
Sure.
For example, in 2021, the library landscaping budget was posted at $85,000. The real price by one lone bidder was $256,000 plus HST, which is basically 300% over budget. In 2022, it was bumped to $100,000. You had 16, 17 bidders. The price came in higher at $288,000 plus HST. Why are you approving projects that are 300% over budget? Now, if I budgeted 10 grand for a bathroom reno and was given a price of 30 grand, would I still go ahead? Not likely. But I'm in the private sector where I have to live within my means. Unlike this township who thinks taxpayers are an unlimited ATM. Another example is the Brock Street Trail project. It was budgeted at $800,000. Final cost was a little over $1 million for a bike trail with dead plants, shrubbery that was basically overwhelmed with weeds, trees planted under live hydro lines, which doesn't make any sense. The architectural photos showed lighting benches and bike racks. None of that is there. The whole project itself has changed from the original drawing. Why is that? Priorities should have been redirected towards drainage issues on Superior, Christopher, and Clarence Streets, which have been overlooked for years. Crushed culverts by Perry Superior going on over 15 years, causing some households to run 2 sump pumps. On Clarence Street, spring flooding caused by a former fire chief culvert installation. The neighboring resident can't use her backyard in the spring. On the main street, just recently, there's 2 clogged catch basins, one of which is subsequently undermining the pavement, and the erosion of the substrates are further filling in the pipe. I'd like to know where your priorities are. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Witzka, I appreciate the questions. And I'd like to speak first to you about the library budget. Certainly I and members of council were as surprised as anybody to see the costs continue to elevate for the cost of the final step at the library regarding the outdoor rehabilitation of the soils and to make the property look proper. Certainly the budget session for that project was approved some years ago, and that was obviously based on best estimates and information provided to the township by engineering staff at that time. Staff continued to update us during the entire project of building that library. There were many contingency adjustments made to the project. The project completed as a build within the budget, but certainly that final step was outside of the budget. And I would agree with you. It's disappointing. Times have also indicated, as you know, the cost of construction price index continues to go up. Price of materials, price of labor, actually getting labor, liability insurance, et cetera, has all exceeded what anybody would ever imagine. And so we're all dealing with great difficulty for sure, Mr. Witzka. And, that question was asked at this council to our staff. And they indicated, of course, that it's more than just the library properties. It's also part of the recreation department area that got some renovation done there as well. So there's a little bit of shared budgeting and all that. Before I go back to you, I'd like to just refer to the CAO. Mr. CAO, I know that you reviewed this with the recreation director. Was there anything you'd like to add as far as the over budgeted item on that particular project?
Thank you, Your Worship. I have one comment, and we're always mindful of increasing costs. This is an area of increasing cost. We did take an analysis to see how much of the project we could do. A lot of the expense is associated with handling the water that comes off the building and the hydrology to make sure that that leaves the building. So some of the work had to be done in order to meet the requirements of insurance and other matters. One of the most important things with the building is management of water that could fall near the foundation area, because that can take years off the life of a building. So my understanding is that that part of the work really had to be done in order to make sure that the future water resistance capacity of the building would be met.
Thank you, Mr. CAO. Dave, do you want to talk about the Brock Street project?
No.
Okay. And the last one, you talked about drainage. Drainage is a big concern across the township. Many of our urban areas are dealing with old drainage systems, ditches next to, urban roads that have ditches that are getting filled in. So water flow and drainage is continually being studied and continually being a problem. So it's hopeful that we can get some of that stuff cleared up by exercising some good engineering and projects to fix some of that, particularly the one on Clarence Street that you mentioned. I know exactly what you're talking about there. Anything further?
Just a further comment on your costs for the landscaping, et cetera. Concrete in 2019 was just over $200 a meter for 32 MPA. This year is 237. So that really doesn't justify a 300% jump in your budget, no matter what you say. I disagree with
Well,
the price increases that you
again,
came up with.
thank you. The cost of labor has changed significantly, not just the cost of, of the actual materials. So anyway, it's, I'm sure, as I said at the beginning of my comment, Mr. Witzka, the council was as surprised as anybody to see the cost of that project. So thank you very much. Is there other members? Hello, Ms. Brony.
Hi.
Hello.
It's Deb Bronning and I'm from New Lowell. I was at the meeting the last time you met and there was a discussion about public participation period and I noticed that it was on the agenda today for review. Reviewing the wording of the amendment, it came to my attention that they've ultimately narrowed the issues in which people can talk about. The way it's worded in the original bylaw, as far as I can see, is that it's any municipal matter. And now they're referring to it as matters that appear on the agenda. And I technically agree with that. However, I don't think it will achieve what the discussion was the last time we were here. And it does keep council running. Participation period should not keep council from running an effective and efficient meeting. However, by narrowing the issues, things may come up that may not, to do a deputation, you may not be able to address it for like 3 or 4 weeks. And by not allowing people to come and address it at a public participation period, at least to put it on the radar that it could be addressed, I think is doing the public a disservice.
All right. Well, thank you very much for your comments. I'd comment back that the report is before council. It's prepared by staff. Council has the opportunity to discuss it and present it once there's a mover and seconder. Obviously, we'll have a discussion on it and we'll see what council decides. All right. Thank you. Is there anybody else would like to ask a question? Public participation period. Yes. You want to come back? Okay, Mr. Witzka.
I've got one about Clearview Transit.
Okay.
It prior to COVID-19, it was losing $15,000 a month from a town hall meeting with Councillor Patterson had in Cranmore. He told me that. I'm just wondering what the monthly losses are now and why fares are still at the original $2 rate. Because as for high mileage, the detour from the 12th concession down around Morgan Road to Wasaga wastes fuel, labor, and time and wear and tear. If you want to, you can write it down. It's 4.4 kilometers detour times, I'm guessing 12 circuits per day, times 7 days a week, times 50 weeks per year equals 18,480 kilometers, or in conservative terms, 350 hours of wasted money. And I want to know why that still is after all these years.
I'll speak briefly with, if I may, about the transit traveling on the Morgan Road portion of the town of Wasaga Beach. That was approved by the previous administration as a direction of council. That motion was well debated by council at the time, and to this day, it remains the route that has been established by council. I can assure you, Mr. Witzka, during the debate, it was a very highly acknowledged and recognized that we were establishing a partnership with our neighbor, the town of Wasaga Beach, that does not provide a transit service on that small section of road within their Wasaga Beach transit system. And that because this route was taking it, into the south part of Wasaga Beach, the north part of our area of Clearview, it was very sensible to work with our neighbors to provide that, as you point out, 1.8 or 1.48 kilometers. So 1.4, correction, 4.4. It was very sensible to provide that as a cooperative effort between our municipalities. Given that the ridership are traveling across borders borderlessly, and they are using the services of both transit systems, and it is something that we have tried to do with our staff, is to work with our neighboring municipalities to provide a more efficient transit system by having the similar cards and similar operator. We've just recently established the same operator. So they're going to be, it'll be a much more efficient, smooth service for the users who use the transit system today. So your point about the actual fares, having to keep the fares at a very reasonable rate for those members of our community who want to use and need to use the transit system is a favorable way to work with our municipalities and with our citizens. You have one more?
I just want to.
Just stand right up. Go ahead.
Barry's rates are $350 per person. I don't know what they are for seniors or whatever. They're downsizing some of their transit because they don't want to burden their taxpayers. They're trying to lose $14 million off their transit bill off the top because it's costing taxpayers too much. I want to know why I, as someone that lives in the country and has no access to it, like 68% of the township has to fund something that we have no access to.
Mm-hmm.
I resent that.
Thank you for your comment. All right. Anything further from members of the public for public participation? It's been very good tonight. Thank you very much, folks, for participating. Council, we're going to move on to our next item on our agenda, which is deputations and presentations. There are none. And item 6 is public meetings. There are no public meetings. However, I would note that there's a public meeting on Wednesday this week. That's where we're going to be discussing some planning public meetings. So that's what's happening on Wednesday this week. Council, item 7 is approval of the council meeting minutes. So recommendation be it resolved that council of the township of Clearview hereby approve the minutes of the July 11, 2022 council meeting as presented. Can I have a mover and seconder? Looking this way, Mr. Broderick, seconded by Mr. McKechnie. Thank you. Members of council, any questions on the approval? I'll call the motion. All those in favor? Carries unanimous. Thank you. And business arising from the minutes, if any. Is there anybody with any comments? Okay. Communications from the mayor, members of council. There are several items underneath 9.1. Council, as I mentioned at the beginning, we did have a closed session. So I have 3 motions here that are prepared from the closed session. So for the clerk, we'll record them all underneath 9.1 and we can call it A, B, and C. So 9.1A, I'll read the motion. I'll look for a mover and seconder. This is the non-union staff compensation pay equity review. Recommendation, be it resolved that council of the township of Clearview hereby 1, approve the recommended non-union salary structure and employee pay adjustments maintaining the 60th percentile of market rates. Item 2, direct the CAO to implement the recommended 2022 non-union salary grid effective May 30, 2022 at a cost of $184,860 and for 2022 and an annualized cost of $316,902 for 2023. Item 3, direct staff to follow the recommendations of Marianne Love Consulting, including conducting the non-union compensation and pay equity review in 2025. Very good. Can I have a mover and seconder? Mr. Broderick, seconded by Councillor Deneen. Council, any discussion items you'd like to bring forward at this point in regards to this item? Yes, Mr. McKechnie.
So I just like to confirm that we're still paying the 1.8% per year to our staff that was agreed upon during the last union negotiations. And this is just to bring them up to the 60th percentile, right? But we're still maintaining a 1.8% pay increase per year while the contract is in effect.
If I can direct that to the CAO, Mr. CAO.
Yeah, that's correct. Excuse me. Last year was 1.8. I think this year it's 1.9.
Okay.
But we're maintaining what was said to the union. I think the CPI last year was over 4 and almost 8% this year.
Right. Just so the public is aware that we're not increasing it by 8% or whatever to match the CPI. We still have a contract in place and 1.8% this year, 1.9 next year. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other questions? No further questions? I'm prepared to call the motion. All those in favor? Carried unanimous. Thank you very much, members of council. Council, item number 9.1B. This is a property purchase issue. So I'm going to read this entire thing, although property issues are always complicated because there's lots of numbers and digits and so on. So I'll read it all and then we'll have a brief discussion. Recommendation, be it resolved that Council of the Township of Clearview hereby that a bylaw declaring the lands located at 5833 2728 Side Road being 0.12 acres, 25 meters by 20 meters, being part lot of lot 26, concession 2, Nottawasaga, as registered roll 357067. And what's that called again? ST. Subject to, see, there you go. Subject to, this is a new one for me because I haven't seen this on reports before. Subject to interest in R0216040 Clearview as being PIN number 7402800040 LT surplus to the municipal requirements be presented to council on desk for consideration. Okay, and item 2, direct staff to provide notice of the proposed sale of land to be utilized as a utility corridor for future growth of Hydro One networks on the township website in accordance with section 3.1.2 of the sale of land bylaw 0464. Okay, I'll look for a mover and seconder and have discussions. Mover, Mr. Walker and Mr. Lamers, thank you. So for clarity, this little property, while the title of this property shows it as being on the 2728 Side Road, it would be known locally as lands that are basically eco park. However, there's a very small portion of land, basically a sliver called, it's 25 by 20 meters, 25 meters by 20 meters, a sliver of land that's right on Mowat Street that currently has an address on 2728 Side Road, but if we establish this, it'll actually be on Mowat Street. So it's a little tiny piece of land that we are going to be conveying in sale to Hydro One Networks. Okay, Mr. CAO, did I do a good job recommending that or representing that? It was very complicated considering that's a tiny little parcel of land. Thank you. Mr. Walker, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just further to that, it is north of the garden, Is that correct?
That's correct. As I understand it, it's north of where the current community garden is.
Yes.
Yes.
Just to help people visualize where we
Okay.
are.
Okay, any questions? All right, we've got a mover and seconder. I've done my best to describe what this little sliver of land looks like. I'm prepared to call the motion. All those in favor? That carries unanimous. Thank you. Item C. Item C is the item that Mr. Walker declared as conflict of interest. Mr. Walker, thank you. Okay, Southwest Stainer wastewater sewer development agreements. Recommendation be it resolved that Council of the Township of Clearview hereby 1, receive the verbal report from the Township Solicitor with regards to the Southeast Stainer wastewater sewer development agreements. Can I have a mover and seconder? Mr. Broderick, seconded by Ms. Deneen. Any questions? All right, seeing none, all those in favor? And also carries unanimous. Thank you. Mr. Walker, you're welcome back. Okay, and council, I did have an item D here, which didn't make it onto the written version, so I have it handwritten by our clerk, and she has excellent handwriting. Item D, it's in regards to a tree maintenance matter. Be it resolved that Council of the Township of Clearview receive a verbal report from the CAO with regard to a tree maintenance matter. Can I have a mover and seconder on that motion, please? Ms. Deneen, Mr. Walker, thank you. Any questions? All those in favor? Thank you. That's also carried. All right, so there you go. That's the report out of in camera. And now at this point, we have 2 other items. 9.2 is Simcoe County District School Board regarding childcare sector before and after school programs at Simcoe County School Board. And the other one is a municipality of Shania, letter requesting support for expanding the Amber Alert system. All right. And yes, Mr. Deputy Mayor, you have a comment?
Yes, please. In reference to 9.3, where they're asking for a letter of support to expand the Amber Alert system
Amber
to
Alert.
involve the children that could be at risk rather than being just abducted. I think it would be appropriate. I'd put forth a motion that we write a letter of support in favor of their recommendation.
All right, Madam Clerk, you can record that the deputy mayor's made a motion. Is there a seconder? Ms. Deneen? Very good. Members of council, any questions about the letter from Shania? Shania. I've actually visited that township. It's right where the Terry Fox Monument is, up by Thunder Bay, just so anybody's wondering. Anybody know anything further? Okay, Madam Clerk, you comfortable with the motion? All right, well, you've heard the motion. We'll prepare a letter. All those in favor? And that carries. Thank you. Anything further then from communications from the mayor? All right, be it resolved that Council of the Township of Clearview hereby receive communications listed as item 9.2, 9.3 on the agenda for information. And can I have a mover and seconder on that motion? Looking to my right, Mr. Patterson and Mr. Lamers. How's that? All those in favor? Thank you. It carries. All right, we're going to go to county reports for information. There is just one item on here. It's in regard to a news release. Perhaps Mr. Deputy Mayor, would you like to speak to that? Do you know anything about that one?
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, I'd just like to mention that the county is moving forward with a 50-unit build for affordable housing. It will be combined for people with social services and affordable housing and other programs that the county has. It's going to be 50 units. It's in Bradford, West Gwillimbury, and it is moving ahead. It's also going to house some Works Ontario and some other provincial organizations within the same building. So it's from a county point of view, it's a big step forward towards finding some more affordable housing units within the county.
Excellent news. Excellent news. All right. If there's no questions on that, be it resolved, Council of the Township of Clearview hereby receive the county reports for information and file as information. Okay, a mover. Deputy Mayor, seconded by Mr. Broderick. Thank you. Any questions? All those in favor? And we'll carry that unanimous. Council, item 11 is council reports and community announcements. So this is where Warden Report gets an opportunity to speak. If members of council have something you want to bring forward, I'm going to look down the road here and see Mr. McKechnie. Are you ready to go?
I'm ready to go, Your Worship.
Okay.
I'm going to say I have nothing to report.
Oh,
Let's carry on.
Carry on. Okay, Mr. Broderick.
Thank you, Your Worship. July 11th, attended the closed session. On the July the 13th, I attended a planning session for the Clearview Backroads Rally with a member from the Clearview Tourism and members from Central Ontario ATV Club. And on the earlier this afternoon, with the mayor, I attended the Simcoe Pride flag raising, and that's it for me, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. Thank you for joining us at that as well. Deputy Mayor, anything you'd like to add?
I just like to make a quick announcement. I'd like to give special thanks to my wife, who was sitting at home tonight, having dinner by herself on our 13th wedding anniversary. And it was 13 years ago, I donned the armor and rode a horseback to have our wedding anniversary, our wedding day. And just kudos to her, because she's all good about me being here at the meeting tonight.
Congratulations, 13 years. Well done. All the best, Lorraine. All right, congratulations, Barry. We're going to move down the table to Councillor Deneen.
Thank you, Your Worship, that I'm going to do the same thing that Councillor McKechnie did, and I will pass it along. to
Okay,
Councillor
thank
Patterson.
you.
Thank you.
Mr. Patterson, Councillor Patterson, how are you?
Thank you. Good. Married 51 years, not to argue with the,
Attaboy. Good for you. Good for you.
and possibly just as happy. Lot of conversation as we're hitting the streets, and a lot of conversation about possible flooding in the town. I think largely caused by some fairly big storms that we've had, and one flooding incident coming down Fairgrounds Road. It's led to some discussions with our deputy director of Public Works, Dan Perot, who's mindful of that as well, and been assuring people that our staff and probably council's mind will be on what we do with some of our drainage issues in the future. both on our paved roads and through the conveyances that we have, ditches and culverts that probably need to be redesigned. So more work on that. Another, excuse me, another thing that this is perennial. People, they don't use these words, but they're getting more and more concerned about the need to urbanize many of our local roads. No curbs, no gutters, better drainage, elevations between the crown of the road and the bottom of their driveway creates a unwarranted drainage canal. It's a nuisance during the summer and a hazard during the winter. There's several spots that are notorious in Creemore itself, and I'm sure we have them across the township. So I've had some of those discussions, and so it's brought me to consider the fact that as the years go by, the months go by here, it's time for us to consider budget items. So this week I'm just indicating to my colleagues and to any of the public that's listening that I am considering what budget items I would bring forward in next year's budget. It's getting on in the years, and I know the mayor and myself have talked about things like strategic plans and the CAO and the like, but I'll be putting them in informally. It won't be on a budget side, but I'll be asking for some kind of a formality coming forward. So I'll keep doing that work with the input from our residents, and that's my report.
All right. Well, thank you very much. I look forward to working with you on some of those items. Very good. Councillor Lamers, how are you tonight?
Not bad, Your Worship. Nothing to report at this time except for answering emails.
Yes. Every day.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much. Mr. Walker, Councillor Walker.
Thank you, Your Worship. No report other than music, market, and park it every Thursday night. It's been enjoyable. It's been entertaining, and it's actually a great evening with a lot of fellowship and a lot of fun. So continue to support it and continue to be there. And that's it, Your Worship.
Thank you very much, Councillor. I've got a couple of quick items. I do want to mention the music market and park it and all of our farmers markets. They've been looking amazing. On Saturday, I had the opportunity to drop into Creemore, and it was a really good crowd there. And I thought it was well done. The weather was perfect, obviously. It was a great day on Saturday, and but good vendors and lots of amazing, fresh vegetables and so on, and beautiful lettuce I picked up there. It was really good. I want to mention that I went to a very fun fundraiser. Actually, it was a really great little event. It was held at a private function, but it was a fundraiser for the Creemore Foundation, and specifically some of the work going on at the Village Green. And I attended that, and I was quite impressed at the level of interest across the entire community of Clearview about this project. I can assure you there were people there from Nottawa, there were people there from Duntroon, there were people there from Stayner. It was a really good gathering, and I thought it was a really good cross section of people that were interested in what's going on with the first of all, the Creemore Foundation and what's happening at the Village Green. A lot of good questions were coming up about the fountain. Interestingly enough, the fountain has got water flowing through it. It looks great. It really does. So I know the hoarding is still up across the park, but it's coming to a point. Trees are going in, and it's looking really like something. And so I would ask members of council to keep penciled in their calendar August the 20th, which is a Saturday. That is the date when they plan to have the opening. And so I believe there's emails going around about that right now to make sure that the community and the public are aware of August the 20th. So it's in the morning, and so it'll kind of coincide with the farmers market that day as well. So be a great thing for you to all participate in. And one more thing I want to mention is on Friday, I was invited to Royal Canadian Legion Branch 397 in Creemore to welcome the Ruck to Remember hikers that are fundraising for homeless veterans. It was very impressive to meet these gentlemen. Two of them are Afghanistan veterans, and they're hiking across the Bruce Trail and stopping at various legions across the route, and had a really good message to say about homeless veterans. And I was surprised at the statistic that they offered that 20,000 homeless veterans are across Canada right now. 20,000. It's just unreal to think, but it's true. So they're raising money to fundraise for that and work with the Royal Canadian Legion right across Canada. So I just wanted to share that with you. It was quite an honor to meet them and to have a little fish and chips with members of the Legion in Creemore. And last thing I want to mention is tomorrow, the 4th annual Stainer Minor Lacrosse Pink in the Rink event is happening at the Stainer Community Center. A couple of games in fundraising for cancer research, the Simcoe Muskoka Regional Cancer Center. The under 13s are going to play against Orangeville, and the under 22s are going to play against Brampton. They've invited me and members of council, if you guys are available, to come out and enjoy us at the rink tomorrow night. There's going to be some great Stainer minor lacrosse happening, pink in the rink. So perhaps we'll see you there. And that's all I have to report at this time. Always, it's a busy time in the summer right now, I tell you. All right, folks, let's move on in our agenda to item number 12, which is our department reports and bylaws. And item number 12.1 is the Committee of Adjustment report for July. Be it resolved, the Council of the Township of Clearview hereby receive report CS 046-2022, Committee of Adjustment for July, dated July 25, 2022. Moved by the Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Broderick. Any questions on the Committee of Adjustment report? Seeing none, I'm prepared to call the motion. All those in favor? And that carries unanimous. Thank you. Council, we've got the deeming bylaw for 9813 County Road 10. Recommendation, be it resolved that Council of the Township of Clearview, 1, receive report CS 047-2022, the deeming bylaw for 2022, 9813 County Road 10, Clearview, dated July 25th, 2022. Bylaw number 2259 be presented to council for authorization and approval. Can I have a mover and seconder? Ms. Deneen, Lamers, sorry, I'll take Lamers. I saw his first. Councillor Lamers, Councillor Deneen. And so Nick, nice to see you joining us from the planning department. Nick, do you want to speak to this deeming bylaw?
Sure, yeah. So it's actually pretty straightforward. It's a brief report, which is always nice. So the applicants have applied to the municipality to deem 2 lots they presently own in Brentwood as no longer being within a plan of subdivision in order to merge them together. So technically, as they were part of the historic plan, so this plan was registered in 1972, I believe. In order to actually merge them, they have to be deemed to no longer be in a plan of subdivision. And that's basically what the application will accomplish tonight, with the applicants being able to merge the lands following approval.
All right. Pretty straightforward. Is there any questions to Nick or other members of staff in regards to this? Thank you, Nick, for joining us. Thank you, Ainley. Members of council, there's a mover and seconder on this motion. I'll look to see if there's anything further. Seeing none, I'm prepared to call the motion. All those in favor? And that carries unanimous. Thank you. All right. Over to the CAO and Administration Department. Mr. CAO, Mr. Ferguson, be it resolved that Council of the Township of Clearview hereby 1, receive report CAO 004-2022, speed patrol enhancements dated July 18, 2022, and defers this item to January 2023 council meeting to consider pending changes to the new Comprehensive Ontario Police Services Act. Can I have a mover and seconder? Then I'm sure we want to hear from the CAO. Mr. Broderick, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Mr. Broderick, Mr. Deputy Mayor, Mr. CAO.
Thank you. Thank you, Your Worship. Through you, Your Worship, to council, we are considered not to be in a contract with OPP, and therefore under the Act, we fall under clause 5.1. And because we fall under 5.1, based on the Act right now, there are no enhancements for our category. Now, as the new, get the proper name here of the new Act that's coming out, is the Municipal Police, new Comprehensive Ontario Police Services Act, which they anticipate to be completed near the end of 2022, which means that I'm recommending that we revisit this in January of 2023 to see where they are and to see what the requirements are. We could enter into discussions now that could have us a part of Section 10 But typically, we're not going to end up in that section in the new act. So I'm suggesting that we would probably have to revisit it in 2023, only because we don't qualify for enhancements at this time.
All right. Any questions to the CAO? Yes, Mr. Patterson, go right ahead.
Thank you. I'll just give a little preface, and I have an amendment that I'm going to propose to this. I would say there's nothing different between in this discovery and that we knew some time ago when we were talking about having an OPP workshop in a session with them, the issue of 5.1, the non-contract, and really, quite frankly, the inability for now, especially the OPP, to hire officers in time to train them. I appreciate what you found. The cost was a little bit lower than I was expected. I think the $200,000 for FTE is suspicious, but anyway, wait till we see the bill when we get it, if we do. That means that given that we have in the past considered the staff recommendation that was approved October 5th for design constraints on some of our roads as a result of the traffic study that we did, we still have the outstanding design constraints on some of the roads, and in particular on Riverside Concession 6 and the Fairgrounds Road. And Council has gone through a long deliberation and ruled out speed reductions for now. And now the option of enforcement, which was something we thought might be possible in terms of mitigating some of the harmful hazard effects of that design constraint. They're no longer available to us now. So in the interest of, I think, living up to our obligation as defined by both our lawyer and the insurance company, that we should make sure that we're dealing in good faith and with reasonable decisions with regards to what do we do with the current design constraints. And for those that aren't familiar with the phrase design constraints, is simply what we're saying is in a traffic assessment study or transportation assessment study that was done by our staff in Burnsides and OTI, the traffic company that does traffic analysis for us. After 2 years of analysis and 48 sections of road, we found 3 sections of road that needed to have efforts made to eliminate the harmful effects of what they call design constraints: narrow boulevard, narrow shoulders, vertical curves, poor sight lines, that sort of thing. So the recommendations still stand, but we haven't found a solution yet. So my amendment is to ask for council to come, for asking staff to come back to council with other measures that can be taken to in 2022. That would be the good faith and reasonable approach to address these design concerns. So I'm prepared to put that motion on the floor, if I may.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, amendment. I'm sorry.
You're amending.
I'm adding to the motion.
All right.
I've sent the amendment to our clerk, Barbara.
So this is still being deferred to January 2023. Is that what you're saying?
No. This says to bring it back for 2022. If it doesn't say that, I would add that.
I'll tell you what, Mr. Patterson, if you're going to bring forward an amendment, can you read the full amendment for us, and then I can ask for a seconder?
That's what I'll do.
I think that's probably the best.
So let me pull it up. As the suspense mounts. Okay, so I see I did not put in the date, but I'll amend that. So my proposed amendment to the CO report 004 2022 speed control enhancements is that it's 0.3 and would be, and that council directs staff to bring back a report recommending measures now needed to address the design constraints as identified in the Transportation Assessment Study, staff recommendations number 1 and number 2, as approved by council on October 5th, 2021, and that it be brought back. And then we need to have a blank space for a commitment from staff when they can bring it back to us.
Okay, so I think I heard your amendment. I hope everybody else on council did. I'll then look to the council. Is there a member of council who's seconding this motion? Oh, Mr. McKechnie? All right. So for clarity, Madam Clerk, if you could just make sure you have that motion clarified. In the meantime, I'd like to address one of the points you brought up there, and that is that you're suggesting in your amendment that the traffic assessment report is should be looked at by our staff and to see what can be done. That's what you're asking for?
No, the traffic, and what I meant basically saying, and that's the point of it, it's never been principally about speed reduction. It's been about the findings of a design constraint. Speed reduction was the most logical, and to staff's mind, solution. We ruled that out. So now we're saying the next thing that was brought up was maybe we can do it through enforcement. Debatable, but that was the suggestion. And now we're finding that that may not be possible for some time. And personally, I believe it's not, both go together, a measure and enforcement, whatever we decide. So this is saying the design constraint's still there. So what are we going to do about it?
Right.
And staff has some ideas.
Right. So my point then is I believe that our staff have the report, have the information, know full well that there is a design constraint, and are, as the road authority, are already making plans to work within that problem to try to bring forward a solution. I believe that that's already happening. I'd like to refer to the CAO. Mr. CAO, I guess our deputy director is not with us tonight. Is that correct? Is Dan on the call? Dan is not.
No, Dan.
Would you or Mike Ron like to speak about that, if you could, about what our staff are doing with the traffic assessment study and the knowledge about the constraints with the design issues?
I can't say whether or not Dan is costing any of the design constraint issues. I can't say for sure. I do know that under traffic calming, they have some things that they can do. I'm not sure if that will deal with design or not. Ultimately, I think you should wait until Dan comes back. He could probably answer that with more certainty. I'm not sure if he's costing a design for that right now.
All right. Let me ask if there's other members of council like to speak, as I kind of stepped the fret, and I will ask that. Is there any members? Mr. McKechnie, you want to speak as a seconder? And then Phyllis Deneen? Okay, go ahead, Doug.
Thank you, Your Worship. So, yeah, I'm willing to support this amendment. So basically, yes, it was June of 2021 at council, and this council approved short-term plans and long-term plans, and the long-term plans being a redesign of the roads. And the long-term in that report was 3 to 5 years. So at the last meeting on June the 27th, I brought that up. And I remember, Your Worship, you said to me, because when I brought up the redesign of the roads, I said, so what are we going to do about this? And this is basically what Tom is asking right now. And you said to me at the June 20 or the, was it June 27th or June 27th meeting, was that we design a lot of things and we don't follow through on them. Well, and I said, well, like, what's the good of designing something if we're not going to follow through? So that's all I believe that Tom is asking for. I don't want to put words in his mouth, but we need to have staff come back to us and tell us that now that we've turned down reducing the speed limits, our only other alternative now is a redesign of the roads. And we need to have staff tell us what they're planning to do to redesign the roads, because we approved it in June of 2021. We approved the redesign of the roads. And so I'm in full support of Tom's motion or amendment. Thank you.
All right. It is true. We do design a lot of things and don't follow through with them. And roads are not the only thing in that category of discussion. Ms. Deneen, Councilor Deneen.
Thank you, Your Worship. It was my understanding that it was within the roads authority to come up with traffic calming measures and that they would look after it that way.
Yeah.
And just as you mentioned, and we don't have anyone here that can tell us the timeline for the redevelopment of Riverside Drive. It's coming, but I do know that there has been requests for traffic calming measures elsewhere. And I know that the supply issues right now have been a real factor in that. I have complete confidence that the staff is going to look into this and deal with it appropriately. And it's just a matter of supply issue and getting those things there. Just like our speed sign in Ottawa, the batteries aren't available. That's been since Christmas. And I do believe it's supply chain issue. And I would like to sometime ask Dan about the timeline for the redevelopment of Riverside Drive. I think it's all in the works, and I have confidence in our staff that they will look after that.
Yep. Thank you very much for that comment. Mr. Patterson is next, unless there's somebody else. Go ahead, Mr. Patterson.
Yeah, well, it's not a confidence, lack of confidence in Dan. And Dan is probably too polite, even if he was here, to say this, but I think our staff is a bit frustrated with the fact that they've worked hard and come up with genuinely effective solutions. In this case, they thought that the most cost-effective one and the most effective one in terms of reducing speed was to lower the posted speed. Enforcement is the next step. My discussions with Dan is, where are you? What's next? And what's next gets more expensive.
Yep.
But what's next is what we have to do to address the issue. If we're spending money, whether it's through services, professional services like engineering, or analysis like we did with OTI, or with actual construction, putting up guardrails, that would come before council. And Dan would make suggestions, especially, I think it would be actually respectful on the part of council to say, Dan, well, we heard your recommendations. We've not been able to implement one, and the other we don't think is necessary. So we're asking you, what's our next level of remediation? So nothing is being done. It's not a traffic calming measure in the fact that traffic calming, I'll say it again, is for a road that's in good condition, but we're trying to change drivers' behavior by putting in speed bumps or some form of monitoring or some kind of signage or paint. In this case, the road has a defect, a design defect. Well, in the case of Fairgrounds Road, the pavement isn't falling away. I was going to say that for Riverside, but in fact, the pavement is falling away. So the issue is, and that's why we went and got the legal and the insurance opinions, is to say, how does our liability? What's our obligations? We know them anyways, but let's make sure. And their obligation is to address and identify road hazard. And we were very committed to doing it at the last meeting. When we turned down the speed, we said, we got to do something. So the suggestion was, well, we'll do enforcement. Whether it's as effective or not, wasn't the debate, it was something. Now we're in the position of doing nothing because we think staff is doing something. We need to be leaders in this. We need to show that we're looking after the safety on the road. And I think I know Dan would, he can tell me if I'm wrong when he gets back. I know he would welcome the fact that we're still interested in doing something about the work that he thinks is necessary to affect the change to that hazard. So it's a simple request. We still have a chance to vote on it, and we'll be better informed than this council is tonight with what has to be done to this road. Remember, we have identified this problem. This is going on to the second year. It's sitting out there. For those of you that and in the public that say, we haven't had any accidents, my question to you is, well, how many do you want before we take action? How many fatalities do you want? How many serious injuries do you want? We know the issue. Now we have to find out what the most cost-effective way of doing it. That's what I'm asking.
Thank you. Mr. CAO, it's your report. First of all, talking about enforcement. Did you have a comment you wanted to add about this amendment that's been presented?
I just in the discussion, I think it was said that staff was already directed to do a design cost. I don't know if that actually occurred or not.
It's not.
I don't think.
I don't think there's been a direction to staff to do that. What happened at the first presentation is staff came in, and at that time, I don't think there were any speed reductions being recommended. And then council directed staff to go back with specific areas to redo it. And then they came back in to council with those areas to be recommended. And at that point in time, staff, I think, was, when the first report was said to go back, they sort of didn't want to step into the politics of it. And I think that's been probably the more, I guess, concerning factor for staff. They don't want to persuade sides. So what we did is we went and we got legal opinions, and then we got information from our insurance company about the process that we take. And from what I got from those legal opinions, I get a sense that there's a range where council can act, but they did mention design as being an issue, that if you're redoing a road and then it meets new design standards, you have to change the speed.
Right.
So on concession 10, that's what's taken place. On the other roads, they haven't been redesigned as of yet. So I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think that's what Councillor Patterson is trying to suggest, that council give direction that he cost up that redesign to determine what it would be and what the standards would be. And I think, I could be mistaken, and ultimately to cost that up so council can make a decision as to whether or not they want to do that road work. Is that a fair statement?
If I may answer that. The discussion Dan and I have had is without the speed reduction to tamp down, the effect of the hazard, we never really considered enforcement the primary tool, just a complementary tool to that. Then what's next? And well, in some areas, we could attempt to widen the shoulder, because the shoulder is supposed to be as wide as a car, the vehicle, so they can have safe egress in case of emergency. Well, we have many roads like that don't. So that's one thing. And then the curve with the poor sight lines, when you add those things, you know what the transportation study said, that when you compound those things in certain of the roads that we have, the three that we've been considering for some time, they added up to problem areas that we should address immediately. I mean, within municipal speed. And so that's still out there. So Dan would see this report saying, okay, if we're not going to do anything other than, and he's not thinking that signs will do. Signs won't slow them down. In fact, for some of them, it may distract them because they're going too fast. So what do we do? So his suggestion may be in some areas where the shoulders are particularly narrow and where the vertical or horizontal curves are particularly contentious, that he may say, we're going to put some guardrails in. But you can imagine what that's going to cost. So council's going to want to know if that's a viable option. And that's why I'm taking the next step, saying, well, if it's not this, then that.
All right, council, we're debating an amendment. So we're going to continue on this course a little bit further. I see that Mr. Ron has joined us. Mr. Ron, I hope you've been monitoring part of this conversation, and particularly of interest to me, Mr. Ron, since you've been here some years, you know about this tool that we use called the Road Needs Study, and how the Road Needs Study is something that has been well reviewed by the professionals who look after roads, and they have a good track of what roads need to be updated and not. So, Mr. Ron, do you have a comment about the amendment that has been presented? And then I'd like to wrap this up.
Certainly, Your Worship. So just a couple comments. We're in vacation season. Mr. Pearl's off this week, catch up next week, numerous projects on the go. And yes, so the roads need study is something that's reviewed, picks the roads in, call it dire need, right? We try to spend our money where it has the best bang for its buck. By all means, Mr. Pearl could get, we could get design analysis costs, right? We don't want to design a road until council's had an opportunity to see how much it would cost to do that work. Council recall that with the road analysis tools that Dan's brought to Clearview, to bring a road to that 70th percentile, right? There was, I think it was like $50 million worth of road work if we wanted to bring it to that level. So what staff does is bring the ones that need the work, the most attention through the budget process. And if council would like to adjust it at the council, at the budget time, that would be ideal for us. A little neater. And I would appreciate if there's going to be discussions about what Dan Pro is conversing, that Dan's here and able to speak to that directly. No offense, but some things I've heard tonight are not what I believe has happened. And I'll leave it there.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Perot, or Mr. Ron. You're right. Mr. Perot is not here tonight, so we have to be respectful that we're not representing his words. So, council, on the amendment, I think what we have here is a report about the enforcement that this community has been working with the OPP to establish even a new committee that will be established as part of this new Comprehensive Ontario Police Services Act. That will bring a higher level of understanding between the elected body and the administration of the township with the administration of the OPP services. And so that is evolving. To be fair to the province of Ontario, they had an election in the middle of the deployment of this thing, and this is what's delayed it. I understand it anyway. So I'm very much hopeful that the enforcement side will improve. I can assure you that the relationship with the new detachment commander and the sergeants that are working out of the detachment are very, very aware of our desire to have enforcement in Clearview Township, and they've been very reactive to that. I've recently had conversations with them that demonstrated that some 1,580 or so speeding infraction enforcement tickets were actually issued in Clearview Township since January 1st, and that's a lot for our township. So we're out there doing speed enforcement on our roads and in our township. So the initial report with this now amendment that's been presented, I think the amendment might be a little premature, Councillor Patterson, given that it is a budgeted item and it is something that I think our staff are, as professionals, are reviewing it every day and are looking at whether they can bring forward how much it's going to cost to do this design work, and council needs to know that. As Mike Ron just said, council does need to know if it's going to cost. So while I appreciate what you're trying to do by tying this all together with the traffic assessment study and the work, Councillor Patterson, I disagree with the amendment on this motion. So I would give it that I think we need to have the staff come back with their own information once they have that information gathered, that they're prepared to show us through the roads needs study and through the traffic assessment study and so on. They have all that information. And so I would expect that they're doing it. Now, to your point, Mr. CAO, they haven't been directed to do it, but they are professionals and they have to look after our roads. So I expect that they're doing it sometime.
Yeah, I just can't confirm it. I just didn't have that conversation with Dan
I
specifically.
understand. I understand. But that's what I would expect. I think the council and the citizenry expect that staff have all the information that they need to bring forward recommendations to council if they see that things need to be done. I'm going to get to you in a second. I see you right here. That's okay. And the last thing I want to mention is, while there's two roads that certainly come into mind, Riverside Drive, as Councillor Patterson's pointed out, it has a real bumpy problem there, doesn't it? And it needs to get fixed. And it is going to cost an awful lot of money. And if Dan and his team are not working on that right now, I'd like to know that, because then council can direct them to do it. Because I think that they should be doing some good study on how much that project's going to cost. Although I bet you there already is some information. My point is that, as you know, they're professional road engineers and professional road authorities. They should have that information available to us and anticipate that this needs to be handled. You know, it's not the job of councillors or mayor or deputy mayor to drive around on our roads and find roads that are in bad shape. It's their job. They are the ones that are on the road to see what's falling apart, what needs to get fixed, and they know that. So that's why I look at this amendment. Councillor Patterson, you want one more thing, but
Well,
if you may, the clerk has been raising her hand, so I wasn't sure.
I
She
appreciate
doesn't
it.
have her yellow card out, so I'm just concerned. That's okay, go ahead.
Through your worship, I also want to just point out with regards to lame duck.
Yes,
So if staff brings a report forward and the item is over $50,000 and it hasn't already been pre-approved in the budget, then council would not be able to make a decision with regards to that.
I guess the other aspects of lame duck does allow the CAO to make those decisions in the absence of council's ability to make that decision. Is that correct?
Yes.
There you go.
To a certain dollar amount.
Yes,
Do we know what that dollar value is?
I would have to pull up the
Okay,
bylaw.
we'd have to dig it out, but anyway, that's the point. Mr. Patterson?
Yeah, just, we know that there is work being done on, it's been reported to this,
Yes.
this council on Riverside Drive. We know what that is. It's, the number was quoted as about $1.1 or $2 million for next year. And engineering is being done right now and almost finished. We've been hearing that. The issue is, I kind of we're turning it towards maybe that this sounds like we're being trying to discipline staff. We're not. And this motion is saying staff has given us a good report. We need to respect it and respond to it. Now, you know, some may argue that we could take 2 or 3 years, the 10-year roads and needs study. This is a very specific analysis was done over and above the roads need study to actually pinpoint areas that we identify. Okay, this is part of a newer tact to address issues that rather than just wait for the processes that we have in place already. That's what the comprehensive traffic study was about, a new framework. And Dan is working within that, and he has already given part of the recommendation was to do even more work going forward. So I would say we need to excuse me, get rid of it. Sorry about that. We need to say to Dan, now that we have, because it's council that's turned down responding to the staff's report. Council has said no to speed, and now we found out we can't do the OPP. So his recommendation as a staff member, his work was done. It's hanging out there now. What do we do? So I don't think we're talking about rebuilding the whole road. Let's not make it that. Let's not make it an argument that doesn't exist here. What I'm saying is, what are the remedial actions we take, knowing that we can't rebuild Fairgrounds Road, but that we still have a design constraint? Is this council really willing to say either we're going to do nothing for now, just wait for it, or are we saying actually, and maybe not saying it publicly, we actually don't think it's a defect? I mean, if my impression is, even though we've debated this thing up and down, we've never contested the recommendation from staff, the findings from staff and from Burnside. So now our obligation is to respond to their recommendation one way or another. So my amendment as seconded stands for council's consideration.
All right, so on the amendment, can I have the clerk to please read the amendment, and then I'll call the motion.
Thank you, Your Worship. So that the following paragraph be added as item or paragraph 3 under the main motion. Direct staff to bring back a report to council. And I'm not sure if you'd like September 12th.
September 12th?
It's a
And I would say that's subject to Dan's.
recommending measures
Come
now
back,
needed to address the design constraints as identified in the transportation assessment study. Staff recommendations number 1 and 2 as approved by council at their meeting of October 5th, 2021.
Can I have clarity on that date? You guys are back and forth about that. Mr. CAO, is that a comfortable date to prepare a report for September 12th, 2022?
I'd be speaking for Dan because he's going to have to put I think he can, but if I can update council, if he's having a little bit of delays in putting that together, I'll let you know. But
Okay.
as it stands right now, it's really up to Dan, and he does have a lot in his plate.
All right. Members of council, you've heard the motion. Is there any further questions on the motion? All right. All right, I'm prepared to call the motion. Those in favor? Those opposed? The amendment defeated. Thank you very much. Thank you, Councillor Patterson.
You're welcome.
It's good discussion. I do appreciate it, truly. Members of council, the speed patrol enhancement recommendation, which includes number 1 and number 2, has already had a mover and seconder. Is there any further on that? Yes, Mr. Walker.
Just a clarification, Your Worship, on page 2. We have the hourly rate of $76.61, $25 per hour for a car, $68.50 for administration fee. If we go down to that next line, we have 4 hours of paid duty at 76, and we ends up saying $474.94 per hour. That should be per 4-hour shift, I believe.
I don't have the report open in front of me on my computer, so I'm looking through the glass here at the clerk. But Mr. CAO, what's your thought?
Yes, well, exactly. So when I sent this to Leah, the commander detachment, I asked if she would let me know what it would cost for 24 hours of service a week. So I was thinking that could be broken up into, 3 days per week, 8 hours on 3 of those days, and putting patrols on various roads for those time periods and do it again the following week, et cetera. She said that she'd price it for that, but she said that they actually do their blocks in 18 hours.
Right.
So I'm not sure exactly how it works. She then offered to bring in the cost per the vehicle, the patrol officer, and any other administrative fees, which I think came in at a flat rate of $200,000 for a full-time equivalency for the year. And I thought maybe a part-time hour approach would be cheaper. I think it'd be a little bit more than $148,000, to be honest with you, when it came right down to it, because it might require another vehicle or something of that nature. But ultimately, that's a rough ballpark of where you put the numbers together. And she said they couldn't allocate anybody to this at this time. That's also one of the reasons why it can't really be looked at until January as well. But I think it's fair to look at it. I will add that she also said that they're patrolling Fairground now. I think if you were at the meeting, at the CPAC meeting, she mentioned that they're patrolling Fairground on a regular basis. And I think she said 6 too, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
But other than that, that's basically the way the discussion went. She sort of really wanted to lay out for us the difference between the 2 sections of the act. And they said they're willing to work with us now, but they really don't think much would happen right now. So
Yeah, no, I don't think so.
Certainly, I just want to support the CAO's comments about the CPAC meeting. The discussion is very clear with the OPP. They are aware that this community wants speed enforcement in our community, and certainly from this council table and from members of the public. Councilors, mayor, deputy mayor, we receive calls from the public, but they also receive calls from the public. And that's good that the public are reaching out directly to the OPP, as it creates a better database for them of community concerns. And that is one of the key things that helps them do deployed enforcement actions. And so it's, if you don't mind me saying, it's been a little change of direction at the OPP detachment down here in Huronia West. And so I'm very happy that things are moving in the direction they are. Further, some of those numbers that you presented in your report, Mr. CAO, reminded me of two previous inspectors, and they had similar numbers as well, with a similar comment that it's very difficult to get officers right now because there's a shortage in overall OPP, officers who are available for service. So it's a bit of a challenge for them. And I'm very thankful and grateful for the services that we're receiving right now. And I look forward to the new Police Services Board being established. I think it'll be better service for our community and a better voice, given that they serve the Huronia West area, and a large portion of their calls for service do come from Saga Beach, the more urban center and higher tourism area. So you had one more thing you want to say, and then Councillor Patterson.
Yeah, just a comment that came from Wasaga Beach, and they basically said, look, if there's an opportunity for us to share in these enhancements when the time comes, they would be certainly open to it. So that's something for us to consider down the road as well.
Yeah, for sure. That certainly is a detachment-wide comment that you'll hear from Springwater Township as well as Wasaga Beach. So it's some things are working very well. Mr. Patterson, go ahead.
I just wondered,
Mr. McKay,
in the discussion with the OPP, when they talk about the level of enforcement, and I agree, I have seen some patrol. I'm not sure if it's a focused patrol, but I've seen some evidence in this section of Clearview. What level of tolerance are they accepting? Posted speed of 80?
That's a great question. Through you, your worship, I'm not sure. They didn't speak to it specifically. I've heard from many people who drive say that there is a certain over the speed limit amount that's tolerated. I don't know what that is. It could be a few kilometers. It could be 10 kilometers an hour. I'm not sure. I've heard many people comment on it. I've not heard any OPP member comment on it.
Well, I have heard discussion in former CPACs in this room from an OPP officer now 4 or 5 years ago that it was 15. I simply say that when we're talking to the that's a key issue for us, especially in areas that we consider hazardous. Bear in mind that our studies triggered over 10 to consider the roads and whether or not the recommendation would be to, in this case, reduce the speed. So based on the information we got from staff and from the engineers, the experts, you shouldn't be going over 10. Their study, if you recall, the average was 96 and the peak was 107. It only takes one going at 107 to have an accident. So the issue with this enforcement is that if enforcement is going to be reused and reduced as an alternate to another proposal, it should at least have the same effect.
Yep. Enforcement is subjective to the officer that's charged with the responsibility to do the enforcement. And it is subjective activity. And they get reviewed in their own performance by their command structures and policies and procedures and demands for service. So it's not a perfect system. They're not robots, they're people too. And so I think that they're doing everything they possibly can, given the crazy circumstances that they work in. Mr. McKechnie, I thought I saw you flashing your card. Yes, go ahead, Doug.
Thank you, Your Worship. I have two questions. First of all, to Councillor Walker's question there about that 474 and 94. Yeah, that's per 4-hour shift,
Yeah.
which I thought was pretty reasonable, actually, you know.
It is, it is, Councilor Hackney, and that's why I brought it forward. It doesn't say 4-hour shift.
No,
It says per hour, and I want that clarification in the public record
Yeah,
that it is per 4-hour shift. That was my question.
yeah.
I appreciate the dialogue that we have given around the policing, but that was my question, was just get that clarified.
Yeah, exactly. So my question, then I have two questions. One is to the CAO. So John, can you just confirm for me that the OPP is not in a position to dedicate an officer to speed enforcement at this time? I mean, according to the mayor, they're out there doing it, but if we approach them and say, look, we want to pay your 474 for a 4-hour shift, and we want an officer dedicated 6 times a week or 3 times a week or whatever. Just from what I understand, from what you're saying, they're not in a position to be able to do that. Is that right?
That's what they communicated to us, that they're not in a position to do enhancements at this time.
Okay, thank you. And one more question to the clerk, if you don't mind, Your Worship. So you've got that this is going to be deferred until January of 2023. Just and how do we make sure that it's done? Like, do you put it just on your calendar or something, or how do we ensure that it gets done in January?
I'd like to know that too. How do you do that?
You put a little post-it note up, or
Well, thank you, through your worship.
Sure.
So after actually each council meeting, staff actually come up with an action list and provide that action list to the department. So if there's any reports that need to come back, we actually provide those departments with an actual action list. And so it's the responsibility of that department to ensure that that report comes back in a timely fashion in accordance with the direction.
okay, thank you.
Thank you. Good education. Little off topic, but I appreciate that. It's a good point. Good time to bring it up. Nothing further from members? All right. Really good debate. As I've said before, slow down. I'm prepared to call the motion. Those in favor? And any opposed? Yeah, okay, that carries. Thank you very much. Slow down. All right, Council, we're moving to legislative services. It's over on page 5 for those that are counting. LS 018, amendments to the procedure bylaw number 12-19, public participation period. Be it resolved that Council of the Township of Clearview, 1, receive report LS 018 2022, amendment to the procedure bylaw 12-19, public participation period dated July 15, 2022. And item 2, that procedure bylaw 12-19 be amended to include provisions for electronic written submissions at regularly scheduled meetings. Okay, a mover and seconder for on the floor. Mr. McKechnie, Deputy Mayor. Sorry, it was Mr. Broderick. It was, he was already on his. We're going to go with Broderick and Deputy Mayor. Okay, thank you very much. Again, I appreciate the comment coming forward at public participation period tonight about this. And if I may, I'd like to go directly to the clerk who could speak about this report that she prepared as a result of our discussion at our last meeting. So I'll go right to Barb. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much, Your Worship. So in 2019, there was a state of emergency that was called. Council meetings were then held electronically, and the only means for members of the public to participate or ask questions was through submitting their comments online through the website portal. In 2022, the government removed many of its health orders and its state of emergency, and council had revoked the participation electronically by members of the public. The last council meeting, there was a request to reinstate the public participation. So as directed, what staff did was we looked at our current procedure bylaw, we looked at our proposed procedure bylaw, and we also reviewed procedure bylaws from other municipalities, London, Wasaga Beach, New Tecumseh. We also looked at Oakville and a few others. So the intent of public participation period is to provide members of the public 5 minutes to each for a total of 15 minutes to speak to items on the agenda being considered by council in which they are attending. This allows council and staff the opportunity to listen to comments and or answer any last minute questions regarding items on the agenda before making a decision. Members of the public wishing to address council on new items, so items not listed on agenda, have an opportunity to do so by making a deputation and or presentation to council. This allows staff the opportunity to make sure that we have the correct staff in the audience. So there are a number of questions and comments that come up that we do not have staff here to be able to answer it. It also provides the member of the public the opportunity to have their full 10 minutes to be able to converse with council back and forth. So that's basically the distinction between public participation and a deputation or a presentation. So based on that, staff have made proposed amendments to the procedure bylaw for council to consider. So with regards to written submissions, the person that is actually providing the written submission would have to provide their name and address and contact information and submit the form through the township website. It would need to be received by 12 noon on the Friday prior to the agenda in which the item is going to be considered. It shall not refer to personal matters, litigation or potential litigation, or planning matters that have already had a public meeting. They would be reviewed by the clerk or designate to ensure that the item is related to an item on the agenda, is not a duplicate of other written comments, and does not refer to litigation or potential litigation. If those comments meet the criteria above, then it would be submitted to the mayor. The mayor would then take those comments, summarize it, and then provide those comments at the council meeting. Verbal submissions, they'd be allowed 5 minutes max for a total of 15 minutes period. For that public participation period, and it would only be with regards to an item that's on the agenda. I understand the concerns that we're limiting, but what we're doing is the proposal is to provide members of the public that dedicated time to do a presentation or a delegation to council through the deputation protocol. And also allows other members of the public to be able to provide comments that are on agenda that council can consider as a last minute before making their decisions. Hopefully that summarizes.
I think you've done a great job. Thank you very much. Members of council, do you have any questions to the clerk? Yes, Mr. McKechnie. Anybody else? Go ahead, Mr. McKechnie.
Thank you, Your Worship. So I would like well, first of all, I'd like to thank Deb Bronny there for bringing it to our attention. The item, originally the procedure bylaw said matters of municipal business. Now we're just limiting it to items on the agenda. And I think that we need to go back to the matters of municipal business. So I will not vote in favor of this report or recommendation if we limit it just to items on the agenda. I think it's important that people be able to say what they want, whether it's in person or whether it's online or like through the portal, but they should be able to say whatever they want regarding the affairs of the municipality, and they shouldn't have to it shouldn't be limited to what's on the agenda for that particular evening. Secondly, you've got Barb, that duplicate items or duplicate comments will not be posted. Well, I don't agree with that either. I mean, if we have
what? Where's the bush from?
Sorry, if we have an item that's causing a bit of controversy, and we get 20 or 30 people writing in on it or standing up here at the microphone on it, I don't think that we should shut them down just because the person before them had the same comment. We should maybe thank them very much and everything, but we shouldn't shut them down, or if they've taken the time to write something on the online portal, we shouldn't eliminate it just because another person had made the same comments. So those are the two items that concern me. The fact that we are limiting it to the items on the agenda, And also to the fact that we are not allowing duplicate comments. I don't think that, I don't agree with those. So thank you.
Oh, okay. I appreciate that. Is there any other members of council with any questions or comments? Mr. Walker, then Mr. Patterson. Mr. Walker.
Thank you, Your Worship. With regards to Councillor McKechnie's comments, I will, number two is first, in the past, when we had the portal, you summarized many of the same requests. We had numerous requests for various things, and you summarized it just that way. And I see that should still be the same as Councillor McKechnie has stated, and that should remain. I mean, we can summarize. You did it many times. You just went through the names of those submissions and said that they were all based on the same topic, and you thanked them. So that was part and parcel of what we did, what you did there. As far as the open to anything, that could potentially be a staffing issue where we don't have the proper staff here to answer that type of question. So I'm just cautioned that, you know, we could get into that where we can't answer somebody, whereas if it was related strictly to council agenda, then staffing, we would make sure that staffing are here for that portal and or public participation as being presented in the public meeting. So I'm just not sure how to go with that, number one, because to me, there's a caution there. That's all.
All right, thank you. Councillor Patterson.
Yes, I think I'm pretty sure the council responded to the request last meeting in the spirit of, I think Councilor McKechnie said it, we've had pretty good interest in coming to the meetings via Zoom, and we'd like to encourage that. And actually, this is a meeting for council to listen to the public during that period for a brief time, as opposed to always just speaking out, oftentimes to empty chairs. Thank you again for coming. But so I don't think we should put, and I don't mean this pejoratively, but I don't think we should put artificial barriers around it. I think people are always going to say the same thing 2 or 3 different ways. That's why they come. Public participation gives me a sense of how many people think that way. How urgent is it? I also think it doesn't have to be on the agenda, and the understanding has to be, and we can explain that pretty easily. If our public works person was here regarding your question on the sewer treatment plant, we might provide you with an answer, but they won't be. So we will have one at the next meeting or whatever. So that's pretty easily handled, and we know there's an issue. And how long does that person have to wait before he brings up the issue? So I think we should try to keep it as open as possible. I think the mayor does a great job without seeming like a disciplinarian, like he treats his councillors. No. Did you hear that?
I did.
Okay.
And I appreciate that, you know.
You don't do that either, but you keep the meeting open, and I think we should encourage it. If it became a problem, okay, so we corral it a bit, but let's have a full audience with open mic, and let's hear what the people are thinking. Maybe we extend it to 20 minutes. It's necessary. So I like the amendments that we're moving towards. And I appreciate the clerk putting the effort into that. I also note, I had to remind myself, because we've been up and down on this, has to be on the agenda. It doesn't have to be, it's open mic. Look at tonight. We had a mix. Debbie talked to something on the agenda. Dave Wiska talked about something that wasn't. We allowed him to speak, and we were informed. So, yeah, and I don't think the agenda was set last week when Samantha Margis asked for similar to what she already had in the portal, and the portal doesn't mention actually that has to be on the agenda. So let's keep it open.
The motion does say electronically presented, which the staff can interpret that into the portal tools that they can use. So that's certainly what it is. And if council disagrees with it, we can clarify that for staff all we need to. Councillor Deneen, you're next.
Thank you. I just noticed I haven't even turned my mic off.
Turn it
the
on.
last time.
Yep.
It's
Speak
on.
right into the mic.
We have to have the submissions in from the Friday before, so we could maybe try to ensure that the staff that are related to those issues could be in attendance on Monday. And if they can't be, then we could just deal with it at that time. That's my 2 cents worth. Thanks.
Okay.
We've got a time frame there. They've got noon hour on Friday, right?
Noon hour on Friday is
Yeah.
the current thing.
And
Did
then
you
we
want to speak?
know.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. Deputy Mayor is up next.
Thank you, Your Worship. So a bit of a procedural issue here.
Sure.
Did you make an amendment, Councillor McKechnie? Because you said stuff, but you didn't make an amendment. And that's where it just seems like we're discussing an amendment that hasn't been presented officially.
Deputy Mayor, as the chair, I've been waiting for somebody to say I have an amendment.
Yeah.
Nobody said it.
I've
You
been
know
waiting.
that I wait for that on every meeting.
And that's why I'm asking the question. Are you making an amendment on those two items that to put back in municipal business, to change the word from agenda to municipal business? And the other one was about repetitive stuff, whatever those. If in fact you're putting forth that amendment, I will second that for you.
Right. Didn't you hear me make that amendment?
Yeah.
Yes, in case you never heard me make that amendment. Yes, I would like to make the amendment that we put in the matters of, that we retain it as a matters of municipal business, and that we take out the portion where you said about not allowing duplicate, I don't know, comments. Yeah, duplicate comments. So anyway, those are my two amendments.
And I second them.
All right. Well said, Councillor McKechnie. Madam Clerk, if you could prepare something there. I got a few comments unless there's anybody else. All right. A couple comments I want to say. First of all, public participation is a very valuable tool to me as a member of council when I sat on council, and now that I'm the mayor. I think it's an important part of this democracy to be able to hear from the public. I firmly believe the best way to communicate is in person, in the room, when you can see each other. The Zoom format has most certainly demonstrated that we're not communicating that well. It's terrible. It puts people in an uncomfortable situation, get misunderstood, even though you're on a computer screen. I think that it's probably one of the worst ways to hold public meetings. However, it does work. It's an effective tool that can be used to keep administrations and governments moving. And so that's why we're using it. It was obviously used during an emergency crisis called the COVID-19 thing. And so it's a big change. We've all had to change. So this public participation evolved, as the clerk outlined, because of COVID, to allow for electronic participation. I'd like to point out to members of this council, and you were all there, when we first brought it up, we initially had no council meetings, none, Councillor McKechnie. We went into the crisis of COVID, and then we brought back the meeting, and then we brought back an electronic participation version, which worked out for a while. And then we amended that electronic version to have an actual portal, because emails were going all over the place and not being coordinated through the clerk's office. So we actually created the portal, and that actually started working. And yet there were still members of the public who insisted that they weren't going to use the portal. So irregardless, the portal was the portal, and it was all a temporary measure. And we put the whole thing in place because we're underneath emergency. And as the clerk outlined, the emergency's over. So we brought public participation back. I'll let you know, I'm the guy who pushed like crazy with our staff to make sure that we did bring it back. We did bring it back. Thank you very much. Then we get this accusation that we're not hearing from the public, saying, you know, the mayor's not listening. Excuse me, the mayor's listening all the time. As I've pointed out over and over and over again, council@clearview.ca email goes to all members of this council. We all see it. That's the best way. If you want to write something down and send it to your elected officials, all of us get that email, period. That's the best way to communicate with these members in a written form. If you're looking to get your comments into a public stance and as a public comment period. You participate in a public meeting, and in our administration, that's usually a planning meeting. That's how you get your official public meetings comments put forward. But if you want to get them into the public agenda, you should be a deputation and appear in front of council as a delegation through the clerk's office, registering and then submitting. And when you submit, you can do things like bring in a PowerPoint presentation. Well, we've had robots moving around on our floor in here in the past where we've had, that's a public presentation. You know, we've had presentations here. So to me, we're doing this right. We're hearing public participation. We're definitely hearing from the public. We have many avenues to do that. We have cell phones. We have there's lots of ways to communicate to your elected officials. But if you're looking to get your comments written as part of the agenda, the best way is to be a delegation. Now, if we're going to open up the door and allow the electronic participation to continue, then there needs to be some parameters on it. And I think the clerk's office has prepared a pretty good recommendation based on the experiences of other municipalities that have public participation style portions of their council meetings. And the majority of them use the term items on the agenda. The majority of them use that. So I don't have a problem with that. But as a mayor and a person who chairs a meeting, I don't have a problem talking to people about anything you want to talk about right here at the microphone during a public meeting. That's my style. It's the way I want to communicate with the public. I'm here to listen. So, you know, as the chair of the meeting, perhaps councillors maybe forget this little aspect, and that is if you disagree with the chair, you can just call a point of order and say you disagree with the chair and call a vote. If you disagree with a ruling that the chair has given. Not saying you should do that, Councillor McKechnie, knowing that my good friend over here may do that, but I'm pointing out that that is how democracy works, and I respect it immensely. So that's how I want us all to understand. So the point about multiple submissions all saying the same thing. Thank you, Councillor Walker. You're right. I would review them all and say that these persons all had similar comments about these things. That's my style of doing it. That's what I would do. It's not written down in stone that that's what you're supposed to do. Like there's no rule book on what the mayor is supposed to do when it comes to public participation period. You just do what you can. So I'll work with you in whatever regulations this council wants to set as a procedural bylaw. Absolutely, I will. But I think we all need to be respectful of each other. This role, the role of the public, and the fact that we want to hear from the public for communications and hear their commentary. That's why I would ask not to support this amended motion. Anybody else? Uh-oh, the CAO wants to speak now.
Thank you, Your Worship. First of all, I think it's a great discussion. I really do. And I wish everything was black and white, as easy for council to experience from a procedural process. But just to give you an idea of why some things have to be separated. So if you had a public hearing, when you have a public hearing, as council knows, you're in a quasi judicial format. You're acting as a judge and you are hearing from people that may be in favor of something or they may be opposed to something, but they're both given the same equal airing in front of this body. Okay. And there's a process laid out that everybody has to follow. If the process is not followed, one of the other parties that feels that the process is not followed can appeal the process. And typically the only thing that you can really get tripped up on is an appeal if you haven't followed your process. So if you're only able to speak on a public hearing at a public meeting, a public hearing meeting, can you let citizens speak on that same matter at a regular council meeting? I don't think you can. Okay. Meaning without creating a potential appeal process, you have to give everybody a fair swing at the opinion at a quasi judicial meeting. I think that's why it states an item on the agenda. So if it was a public hearing that was on the agenda, then it's fair game. But if it's not a public hearing and you want to talk about that and it's not on the agenda, typically a municipality would not permit you to talk about it because you'd be giving someone else an advantage over somebody else as opposed to being at the public hearing. So there's very minutiae here that comes into play. For the most part, I would encourage anybody that wanted to comment on the municipality to have the opportunity to do so and to submit. But we also have to be mindful that sometimes we may have to say to somebody, I'm sorry, that's meant for a public hearing and it can't go on the agenda this evening. So I just want council to be aware, there are instances where there are slight differences here.
That the mayor speaks last, and then we go to the vote. But I recognize we have some requests to speak, so we're going to go to Councillor Deneen and then Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through yourself to John, I just want a little clarification. Item A3 says that it shall not refer to personnel matters, litigation, or potential litigation or planning matters that have already had a public meeting or any item considered confidential. So, and it goes on in the next, in item 4, after the amendment that we're going to put in, are not, well, we're supposing we might take out are not a duplicate of other written submissions received. But it also goes on to say, or refer to items listed under number 3. So something that's already had a public meeting. Public meeting and public hearing is what I'm having trouble deciphering between the two.
Yes.
If you would.
So it's a great question. So a public hearing, that's when council actually, you are not acting as a council anymore. You're acting as a tribunal, a quasi-judicial body. Okay. So I always, and this is a layman's term of explaining it, you're a judge. And if you're a judge, you have to hear from both sides at the same time in court.
Mhm.
You can't go meet with one side, or you can't hear from one side without having the other one there so that they hear what's being said. So it's a quasi-judicial thing. So a public meeting, if it's mainly for information, to give information, I would say that that's not quasi-judicial. It's not, a public hearing definitely is. Okay.
So the public hearing, it sounds more like that would be something that we would be doing in camera in the first place.
No.
Not necessarily.
What's recently happened this year is the public hearings are now being scheduled on a separate date. So you're hearing a public hearing Wednesday evening. Okay, that's a public hearing. You're in a quasi-judicial role.
Can I help you out? One more thing. The Ontario Planning Act changed the language some years ago, and they call it a public meeting.
But it's still a public hearing.
It's a public hearing
Yeah.
in its function.
Yeah.
But the word public meeting is used in the Ontario Planning Act, and therein lies confusion. Because this, as we sit right now, is a public meeting, but
Exactly.
not a public meeting as per the Planning Act.
That's right. It's not quasi-judicial.
Correct. Sorry to interrupt. Adam, go ahead.
It's a role that you play during a public hearing, quasi-judicial.
So we need a further amendment to this. No? Within that?
Your worship.
Okay.
I may be able to help explain.
Thank you.
Put your mic on.
So, Committee of Adjustment is a public hearing. It's a quasi-judicial board. We make decisions on behalf, people come in, they're asking for a specific planning amendment or a specific severance. So that's a hearing. We're making that decision. Public can be there and public can put forth their opinions if they want. Often, public never shows up, but we still have to make a decision whether the public shows up or not. Okay? If it's a public meeting, like a planning meeting where we're just giving information and that's all we're doing, or we're having the meeting so that an applicant can present stuff, but we're not necessarily making a decision at that meeting. All we're doing is having a meeting to present information. So they're two totally different things. So committee of adjustment, stuff like that, that's a quasi-judicial. So I don't think you need an amendment at all. I think it's kind of self-explanatory, if that helps.
It does. Thank you.
Well done. Next, Mr. Patterson.
Yeah, what she said on number 1. Same thing, and you said. The other thing was, if we can leave that subject, everyone's finished with that one. I think we should be a little bit more definitive in what we mean by a regular council meeting or a scheduled regular meeting. Like special meetings often are single subject meetings, workshops is something else. There may be times when we're really busy and we schedule another regular meeting. So I don't see, and that would be an important time to hear from the public. It's no different than 6 months ago when we set the agenda. We just didn't think we were going to be that busy and we didn't think we'd need a meeting on that day. So I would leave us a little bit of freedom. I don't think we need to codify it. I'm just saying that when it's actually just an additional scheduled regular meeting, then it should have public participation.
Can I help before the clerk jumps in? Because I know she really wants to, but certainly in my experience, it's been that regular council meetings are assigned by a bylaw that we pass generally in the first couple of months of the year. We say, these are the regular scheduled meetings that council will be holding. And we pass that bylaw with establishing all those dates. Okay. And that bylaw, if you recall, we'll have to look at it and go, oh, gee, that's a holiday Monday. We shouldn't have it on that. So we make amendments and we set the dates of the regular council meetings. And therein lies part of the problem in the fact that some regular council meetings have very full, thick agendas with a lot of content and complicated debates about any other item that's municipal business, and other meetings can be done in 15, 20 minutes. But it's still a regular council meeting that's passed by bylaw at the beginning of the year. It's not done at the term, it's begun at the beginning of the year. And so special council meetings come up as a result of individual items that are of specific attention or needing immediate attention, or items that perhaps need to be pulled out of a regular agenda for a longer debate where we dedicate enough time to have either a presentation or whatever. There's a lot of reasons for special. And then the other two meetings, of course, are emergency meeting, which we've only ever had to hold a couple of those since I've been around, and that's it. So those are the terms of the meetings. And so therein lies the issue to me, Tom, is about the regular meetings are the ones that are established at the beginning of the year, that the entire administration, all the public, all the members of the council, all the developers, all the engineering firm knows those are council dates set aside. Correct? Regular meeting.
In general, but look at what we did with the one coming up in August 11th.
Yes, August 11th.
You know, I mean,
we're doing that mostly because we have an election coming up, and as pointed out, we have a potential for a lame duck situation. We have a few items that can be handled immediately. So we're putting that together as a special meeting on the 11th. Madam Clerk.
Through your chair, you answered the question.
I did okay?
Actually, you did great.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome.
Whew. Anybody else? We're talking about the amendment right now, folks. Anything else? Madam Clerk, could you please advise what the amendment motion is?
Thank you, Your Worship. So I quickly summarized it, and hopefully this meets Council's, Councillor McKechnie and Deputy Mayor's Burton's proposal, that section 6.2 of the proposed bylaw be amended to remove reference to items on the agenda being considered by council, duplicate or other written submissions received, or submissions not related to an item on the agenda. So through Your Worship, what that would mean is, for instance, when you look at paragraph 1, it would say, as part of regular scheduled council meeting, a public participation period will be included on the agenda, giving members of the public an opportunity to ask questions and or provide comments on municipal business utilizing one of the following methods. Section 4 would be amended to say all written submissions will be reviewed by the clerk or designate to ensure they do not refer to items listed under Roman numeral 3, which is personal matters, litigation, potential litigation, planning matters that have already had a public meeting, or any other item considered confidential. And then it would say, if the item refers to an item listed under 3, it will not be submitted to be summarized at the meeting. And then through Your Worship, under B for verbal submissions, it would say that comments on municipal business. being municipal business period. So we'd be taken out on an item being considered at the meeting. So we'd delete those items and then just say on municipal business.
Okay.
With me.
We're all there? All right, members of council, we've had a good debate. Thank you. This is on the amendment only. I'm calling the motion on the amendment. Those in favor? Those opposed? All right, so that carries. Thank you very much. So that's going to now be included on the original motion. Members of council, I think we have a mover and second. I've forgotten who it was. It was McKechnie. No, it wasn't. It was Broderick and Burton. Broderick and Burton on the original motion, now as amended. Any further discussion? No? Okay. Members of council, I'm prepared to call the motion. All those in favor? And that'll pass unanimously. Thank you very much. All right. All right, council, we're moving on to finance, FIN 011-2022, delinquent property standards collection policy. Recommendation be it resolved that council of the township of Clearview hereby one, receive report FIN 011-2022, delinquent property standards collection policy. And item 2, approves the property standards bill collection policy attached as appendix A to this report. Can I have a mover and seconder to get this on the floor? Mr. Lamers, Mr. Walker, thank you very much. I'm not sure who's here to speak on that. Mr. CAO, is there someone? Oh, is that Kelly on there? Hi, Kelly.
Hi, Your Worship.
How you doing? Can you
I'm doing
give us an
excellent.
update on this?
I most certainly can through the rest of council, through Your Worship. This is sort of the last little piece of invoicing that we do that is permissible to be transferred to the tax roll under section 398. So we have mimicked our utility delinquent account policy so that twice a year, any of these outstanding property standards invoices will be transferred to the tax roll, and then they can be picked up on the final billing. And if council has any questions, I'm here.
Excellent. Your audio is just a little broken up, but I think we heard what you said. Can I ask any members of council if they have any questions to the clerk? Or sorry, to the treasurer. Hello, Madam Treasurer. All right, Kelly, you're getting away on this one. Good job. Let's take care of that voice. Members of council, you've heard the motion as presented and the comments from Kelly. I'm prepared to call the motion. All those in favor? That carries unanimous. Thank you very much. All right, council, we're on to bylaws. And the first bylaw is 2258, which is this amendment regarding the procedure bylaw. Before I read it, I just want to confirm with the clerk that it's now as an amended, so you can amend the procedure bylaw as amended. Is that correct?
That is correct, Your Worship. We will make the changes to the bylaw as directed by council tonight.
Okay, so, all right. So it's, although it's printed this way, we'll make that amendment before it's signed by the mayor and the clerk. All right, I'm going to read the bylaws. Amendment number 9 to the procedure bylaw. Be it resolved that bylaw number 22-58, being a bylaw to amend section 6.2 of procedure bylaw 12-19, be presented and read a first, second, and third time, as amended, be presented and read a first, second, and third time, and finally passed on the 25th day of July, 2022. Moved by Mr. McKechnie, seconded by Mr. Broderick. Thank you. Any questions? Seeing none, I'll call it bylaw. All those in favor? Whoop, you got your no card up. Is that the one you want to put up, sir? Just checking. Thank you. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Unanimous.
You had your no card up when you were second.
Yeah, I saw that too. I said, whenever. See, that's how casual we need to be here. We just make sure we get it done right. Everybody's communicating. All right. Deeming bylaw 2259. Be it resolved that bylaw 2259 being a bylaw to deem a portion of registered plan 128 in the former township of Sunnydale, now in the township of Clearview, not to be a registered plan of subdivision for the purposes of section 5 and 3 of the Planning Act, be presented and read a first, second, and third time, finally passed on the 25th day of July, 2022. Can I have a mover and seconder? Mr. Lamers and Councillor Deneen. Lamers and Deneen. Any questions? Seeing none, I'm prepared to call it. All those in favor? That also carries unanimous. Thank you. Okay, council, there is an additional bylaw as a result of the in-camera item and item 9.1C on our, B on our agenda. Okay, be it resolved that bylaw 22-67 being a bylaw to declare land surplus to municipal requirements of part lot 26 concession 2 Nottawasaga, PIN number 7402801140. And those will be deemed surplus to the municipality. Can I have a mover and seconder on this bylaw? Mr. Walker, Mr. Lamers, thank you very much. Any questions? Seeing none, I'll call the bylaw. All those in favor? And that also carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Okey dokey. Council, item 13, bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the council meeting. Recommendation be it resolved, bylaw 22-60, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the July 25, 2022 council meeting, be presented and read a first, second, and third time, finally passed on the 25th day of July, 2022. Mover and seconder, Mr. Patterson, Ms. Deneen. All those in favor? Thank you. That carries unanimous. Motion to adjourn. Mr. McKechnie, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Happy anniversary. Be it resolved that the council meeting be adjourned. And what is it? 7:33. How's that? 7:33 p.m. Is that correct? Thank you. All those in favor? And we're adjourned. Very happy anniversary to you, Deputy Mayor. You can pack up and get out of here right away. Okay. Bye-bye.